So if you like that bit, we coming up next is a interview with Andrew Hanson, gentleman on TikTok that I found who was talking lots and lots about the magnetic pole shift.
Yes.
Now, for those that don't know, the Earth's magnetic poles flip every so often. It last happened, coincidentally enough, 12,500 years ago. And it's now theorized it's meant to happen between 2030 and 2045, so in 10 years' time, right? Now, I've gone into the rabbit hole. We spoke to Andrew specifically because I'm fascinated by this topic. Coincidentally happened at the same time as this meteorite was meant to hit, or shortly after, or shortly before, whatever it may be. And we go on to talk about the magnetic poles thing. Now, what's really interesting about this is that when the magnetic poles flip, it causes the Earth to stop spinning. Not only does it stop spinning, the actual entire planet turns 90 degrees.
Oh my God, that's petrifying.
So we spin at 1,000 miles an hour on the Earth, right? So when it stops spinning, all the water and all the air is going to continue to spin at 1,000 miles per hour, meaning that anyone on land, their skin will be ripped apart from the winds traveling at 1,000 miles an hour. And then the waves, the sea, will still be moving at 1,000 miles an hour, but the Earth has stopped. Therefore, it will create a tsunami 2 miles high,
Oh my Christ.
which will circulate the entire globe. And then at the same time, 3 days of darkness will occur. Well, particularly on one half. One half of the globe will see pure darkness in the vacuum of space for 3 days because it's not spinning anymore. So that side will freeze almost instantly. Within 1 hour, there'll be 7 foot of ice everywhere. That's how cold it would be. And then on the other half, it will be insanely hot because of the sun.
Oh, so which one would you choose?
So if you survive the tsunami, the heat, the cold, and then
The wind.
this happens for 6 days, and then on the 7th day, the Earth will go back to normal and start spinning again because the poles will flip back round. It sounds awfully like the Younger Dryas.
Yeah.
It sounds awfully, and this is all written in the scriptures, particularly in the Bible. It talks about in Exodus. It talks about how there were 3 days of darkness followed by a global flood, and on the 7th day, God rested.
Yeah.
And it brought everything back again. So we're talking about this in the interview. Make sure you go and check that out. That's coming up in a minute. But that then led me to have a theory on Mr. Musk.
Yes.
Now, if there's one man on the planet who's going to know a lot about the Earth and what's happening to it and the magnetic poles, it's going to be the guy that's launching rockets, right?
Mate, he's from Sirius.
And he's not only building the most insane rockets that have ever been built, which are, autonomous and land vertically and all that type of jazz. He's built 100 of them.
Yeah.
And he's launching them at such a high rate. My question is this. Does he know?
Oh, mate.
Is his urgency not just to get to Mars, but because he knows the magnetic poles are going to flip in 10, 15 years' time, and therefore he's desperate to get off the Earth, even if it's just to stay in orbit while it all happens?
Yeah, like just spend 7 days out of Earth.
So that is my question. Like, why is he doing it so quickly?
He's intelligent enough to know.
He would be. He would have the inside information that we don't have. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, Dan, this is such bollocks. I'm going to turn off.
Conspiracy theories.
It's rubbish. Put your hat back on. Tinfoil hat. But stop adding it up together, guys. They wouldn't tell the general public because it would be an apocalypse. Everyone would die.
Imagine the hysteria.
Everyone would die. Right, unless you lived in the mountains, because if you're higher than 2 miles up, you'll survive. Which is a lot of the mountain areas, the Rockies, the Alps, the Himalayas. They're all crazy, crazy high. So if you're in those areas, you may well survive. If you're in a cave, maybe, like Turkey.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, exactly. Right. So this is now all adding up. We're going to talk to Andrew about it, but I wanted to get your thoughts. Have you watched Ancient Apocalypse? Are you worried about it happening again? Do you know much about the magnetic poles? If you're interested in none of that, this interview is going to be banging for you. You're going to love it. But I want to know your theory as well. Is this all just crazy weed smoking talk? Or has this got an element of truth to it? Now, people at home might be thinking, yeah, but Dan, if you believed in it, you'd be doing stuff to survive. We are. We've started building our bunker. and I'm not joking, there's going to be content on this show that's becoming in the next few weeks. We've literally started putting plans in place to create a survival bunker, because having all the research I've seen is making me think there's something to it.
Mate, it's just
and I'd rather
bonkers
be prepared and nothing happen
than be
unprepared and then it all fucking happens.
Yeah. Then nothing else matters, does it? Do you know what I mean? That's happening.
So guys, let us know what you think in the comments. Do you find this stuff remotely interesting? I know it's not necessarily comedy related, but I still find it fascinating. I think it'd be a great debate. And let us know what you think about the interview with Andrew.
Yeah, do you think that this is something we're blowing out proportion? Have you got anything to add?
Oh, that's what she said.
Have you got anything to add that we've missed out? Is there a point that we haven't thought of yet?
Let us
Guys, please, in the comments below, let us know, because we like everyone.
Should we watch the interview with Andrew?
Yeah.
Guys, next up is Andrew. Oh, what was his name? Fuck! Bop dip da ba doo dip da ba doo dip da ba doo. Oh, what's the words? Say you love me.
Oh.
You say you love me, but you don't know. Say you love me. Oh, what is the Mbop song? We've got to sing that. We've got to sing that. I fucking love that song. Do dip da ba doo dip da da doo. Yeah. That'll do, won't it? Guys, check out this interview with Andrew Hanson right now.
Oof, never going to forget his name.
No, not now.
Not now.
Check out this interview with Bop.
A Hanson.
Yeah, sure, let's do that.
So, mate, my name's Dan Wheeler.
And I'm Kaz.
And as you probably guessed, we run a podcast here in the UK, a comedy podcast. We're big fans of stand-up comedy, sitcoms, TV series and whatnot. And we try and have some fun. Touch on some topical topics and try and have a few laughs every day.
Yes.
One of our interests, I suppose is the word, is this whole magnetic pole shift type thing, with a whole conversation around it.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's all right.
Yeah.
So we're very enthusiastic about it. That we have a keen interest in it. I've been a huge physics, an astrophysics geek, if you like, or enthusiast for since I was a wee lad. Yeah. So the whole topic fascinates me, and we came across your TikTok last week, week before, can't quite remember now. And the time flies, mate. Every day is merging into one now. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. And I saw that you had a keen interest in it, and I thought this man might be able to shed some knowledge on a few questions I have.
Yeah, I hope I can, honestly. Fair disclaimer, I'm not a scientist, of course,
Neither are we.
So,
Neither are we.
No. We're just average people here just trying to find some answers,
Absolutely, mate.
Correct.
Absolutely. So, mate, tell me a bit about yourself. Kind of what's your background? What are your hobbies?
I'm a freelance artist, mostly tattooing. I also do a little graphic art on the sides. Typically in the winter, it kind of picks up more for that. And I also just finished my first kids book, and I'm working on a second one.
Oh, fantastic.
Wow.
Okay, so honestly, truth be told, I was trying to kind of advertise that originally with my TikTok channel. I thought I could maybe promote my book and my artwork, but I just feel a little bit more compelled to put this information out. I just feel like this is kind of more important. So I don't want to just shamelessly promote myself like that either. I just, I don't know. What's more important? That possibly saving humanity? I think so.
I love it.
Absolutely. It's just a bit.
I love the extreme thought of it all as well, because this could just be a batshit crazy conversation between two dudes and a chick, and we go around the houses, we don't solve anything, and the questions are left unanswered, and it could just be a waste of time, or it could be clues to something catastrophic that's happening, and I'd rather go down that road and be wrong.
Yeah, me too.
Rather than go down the ignorant road.
It's almost like say nothing, do nothing. No, you can't. You've got to do something.
Indeed.
Yeah, I would rather be prepared than not prepared. And, my volume is up. Okay, never mind. Even if, it doesn't end up happening being a nothing burger, I mean, at the very least, it's a good option to trying to get out of the WEF and the 15-minute cities and this whole plan that they have for us. At the very least, it's a way to kind of combat that. At the very minimum, I look at it. So even if I end up being wrong, hey, if I'm out somewhere rural when this whole thing goes down, at least I'm better off, I guess, you know?
Yeah. Well, should we give a brief explanation to what we're talking about for people that watch this back? So,
okay,
so 2 seconds, mate. So, this is pre-recorded. So the Zoom call is recorded. I'm also recording my screen, and I've got a camera here as well. So we'll chop it up into a nice flow of the podcast, but it's not live. So if there's anything that you want taken out, if there's anything that you didn't think came across well, or that wasn't right, or that you wanted to change, just let me know at any point, mate, and we can just stop and start. And then we'll edit it all together so it's nice and seamless and smooth. So there's loads of free will. And also just to let you know that we won't put the podcast episode out until you've approved it. So, so it's a two-way thing. I want there to be trust on both sides here.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate that. I wasn't really too worried about it, though. I kind of watched some of your material. I was like, he's not going to... You know, I think you're interested in this subject. You know, I got good faith in you. So
awesome, man.
You seem like a genuine good person so far.
Stop it.
You'll make him laugh. You'll make him laugh.
Stop it. But you're right. I am.
I'm not going to lie to you. He is.
So, mate. So, for those that are watching at home that know nothing about the topic, break it down for me. We have Earth's magnetic poles. We have a North Pole and a South Pole. Every so often they flip round and cause chaos. Break it down for me in kind of a little bit more detail than that.
Okay. Well, so the Earth goes through a disaster cycle, and it's pretty much like clockwork. We know this from geologic record. We know this from fossil record. We know that there's been at least 6 mass extinctions in the past. They don't really understand fully a lot of the reasons why, but they do have a lot of hypotheses as to why we face these mass extinctions. There is a study that I pulled up just the other day. It was from Stanford, and they had gone back to these cave paintings, and they were guessed to be about 42,000 years old. The last time we had what was known as a geomatic excursion, which is a lot like a flip, but it's a lot shorter, so they're harder to detect in the strata of magnetic flow, basically, in the rocks. It's harder to tell because it happens basically 100 years it takes to kind of do this flip, whereas a full-on magnetic flip takes around 1,000 years to complete.
Wow.
So it's a lot easier to detect, right? Because you're going to have a lot more magna flow, then you can pick up the magnetite and sense the direction that the poles were facing when it was laid down and so forth. So we know, though, through, like I said, through geologic record, that these destructions, flooding, and that kind of thing happens pretty regularly. Like I'd say on average about every 6,000 years.
Wow.
This is pretty regularly.
That is really regularly. And when we say a flood, do we mean a global cataclysm, as Graham Hancock would word it?
Yes, we're talking floods that Hollywood couldn't recreate in a CGI movie set. I mean, we're talking 3 to 4 miles high tsunamis.
Oh my Christ! Wow. I heard 2 miles, but could they really be 4 mile high tsunamis?
I could. It really just depends on the volume of water, at the speed at which all this starts moving. The other part of it too is it's not just the water that comes sloshing over when the planet does this; it's the wind as well, because we constantly have winds blowing and currents and things like that. So when it shifts, that wind keeps going too. So we've got 1,000-mile-an-hour winds that are just going to blast everything out of
So for those watching at home, I have a little fidget spinner here. So if I was to spin this, and this is the Earth spinning on its axis, and we have the North Pole here and the South Pole here. Essentially what we're saying is every 6,000 years, is that what we're saying? This magnetic pole flips.
It's a hypothesis, right? They do have some physical, they have some constants to kind of explain the wobble. They have this thing called the Chandler wobble, which they can observe on Mars as well. But then I read another paper that kind of suggests that the reason for the wobble on the pole in the first place was due to seismic activity, where the displacement of weight kind of throws that wobble off.
Okay.
In combination with the weight of the ice, I guess. But it didn't really make it. To me, it seemed like they didn't really understand the mechanism fully to why that was doing that. That was just one explanation. They do know that the spin of the Earth is what creates our magnetosphere. So it's called a dynamo effect. So you have like the inner core that's basically like it's charged, hot, really charged. The outside spins in the opposite direction of the inside core, and through that liquid medium, that creates our magnetic field, basically.
So it's essentially liquid metal rubbing against liquid metal at different temperatures, therefore different magnetic strengths, creating a charge, and that creates the Earth's magnetic poles, essentially.
Yeah. Yes.
So
So basically, they don't. I couldn't get the answer whether or not one was dependent on the other. So if the speed of the Earth created a stronger, if the Earth is spinning faster, does that create more of a stronger magnetic field if they're related, or is the spinning of the inside of the core related? I couldn't really figure that out, but they just know that that's basically how it's created.
And we know also that in recent publications that the core has recently stopped spinning.
Yeah, and supposedly that happens every 70 years, I was reading as well, too. But again, I don't fully understand that. That could be a nothing burger. That could also be something they're just lying to us about. It could be either or. It could be like they're just, it's nothing, don't worry about it, and just trying to hush it because
in my crazy head
of the coming,
In my crazy head, I connected the dots to the magnetic, the iron essentially moving around did exactly what you say, is create the magnetic field, so to speak. And then if the core is stopping, that could be a trigger for it flipping, could it not?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
That's what I thought, wasn't it?
So
it could be a sign of it. And sorry, what's that?
No, forgive me, mate. There's a small delay, so I don't want it to come across as I'm always over talking you, because I thought there was a natural conclusion. But if we go back to the Earth spinning model, essentially what we're suggesting is with the magnetic poles, at some point, which we'll come on to in a moment, the spinning stops, the Earth turns on its side, and then a week later it all kicks up again. Is that essentially is that right or is that wrong?
Yeah, it's again, it's really hypothetical, and I don't want people to think that this is definitely what we're set on. It's one option. I think that there, like I said, there's a couple reasons for the wobble and the tilt, but the reason why it would completely flip over, I really don't know. But in models, they were able to get inertia to spin the pole out towards the equator, and then it snapped back up and get back into place. Right, and then there's also another effect I was telling you about, the tennis racket effect.
That's right.
The Benizakivov, I probably butchered his name. It's basically like with a tennis racket, you have one axis which would be your handle, and then you have the two other axes which would be the sides of your paddle. Mm-hmm. So if you were to flip it, if you notice, it pretty much no matter what you do, it kind of does a side flip as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You see people on skateboards kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So without gravity, if you were to do this in space, you were to spin, say, a 3-axis object, it'll spin for so many spins, but one slight disturbance will flip the second axis on its side. And this is in, like in space, basically they could demonstrate this.
Now, I've got a little clip here, my friend. So is this the one you are referring to?
Yes, that's the one I'm talking about.
So what we'll notice here, guys, what we're looking at here, if I go to the video, I can make it a bit bigger. That's what she said. So here we have just a tool of some kind. I think it is an Allen key or something. And they're spinning it in space. And there's a phenomenon that Andrew just mentioned, which I won't even attempt to try and repeat. Does this inertia flip completely, what it seems like, out of the ordinary?
Yeah.
It just does it by itself.
Wow.
Like every so many rotations, a slight disturbance on the second axis causes it to flip over. And
I mean, it's fascinating.
Right.
I mean that's remarkable. It would do that. It makes no logical sense in my mind to why, and where's it getting the energy to do that? Is it purely inertia?
It has to be. That's the only thing I can think of. Just rotational mass. That's it.
Oh wow! I mean, it's quite beautiful as well. But essentially, what we're saying here is that rotation in space can do some funky things with inertia and movement, and there's a potential that if the magnetic poles flip, then it might do some funky stuff to the actual planet.
I think so, and I think they're related. I do think that the actual rotation of the planet flipping and the poles, I think, are related. I mean, a lot of the argument I got. So I also should mention that video, the second one I posted, I made quite a lot of mistakes, and I've done quite a bit of research since then. So now I'm okay with being wrong. I'm hoping to be wrong. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Cool.
Please prove me wrong.
So I'm just saying it's hypothetical. These things can be recreated in space and in models. They took that same sort of physical model in a computer, and recreated with the gravity and they demonstrated that even in a computer model that the Earth could flip over after so many rotations due to that same gravitational effect that it can be demonstrated.
Wow.
So the inertia from that is one hypothetical way it could happen. From the inertia of the planet itself, I don't know. The other thing is the poles shedding off. That's kind of, it seems like it would be independent, but it doesn't seem to be. That's the thing. It seems to be related to all this because, like they even say that we're spinning faster, but at the same time, it seems like, and then we hear about the core shifting directions. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, you're hearing that the poles are getting weaker and weaker exponentially every year. So it seems like they're related. They have to be.
Well, there's such huge, the Earth is such a huge object. I mean, the scale of the Earth, I don't think people understand or can grasp. I don't think it's possible. It's so fucking massive. It's so massive. And so when you see these huge changes, it just makes sense that they seem to be related because what else is causing it?
It just seems really coincidental, doesn't it?
Very coincidental.
Yeah,
really coincidental. So, mate, what are the other possibilities that could happen when the poles shift? Because I think we should make that clear. It's not a case of if the poles are going to shift. It's a case of they're going to. It's when will it happen?
Well, coincidentally, you can go back. Have you ever heard of Anno Mundi? It's a time. It's a like a calendar that the Jewish people use. Year 1 marks the flood. So if you fast forward, we're almost close to 6,000 years. So
was that year 1 after the flood or before it?
I think like year 0 would be the flood, and then year 1 would be after it.
A year after. Got it. Yeah. And by that calendar. So what were you saying about that calendar?
Their prediction is that it would be before the 6,000th year.
And then how old is that calendar?
Well, I mean, let's look it up.
5,999 years old.
and half a day.
Yeah, something like that. Let's hope that. I think it's like 5,700, I think, around there. Last time I checked.
Oh, fuck. So quite soon.
Yeah, we are. It's been just under 6,000 years since the last flood. And then there's the other thing, too. There's possibility of that happening, the planet flipping on 90 degrees. We get new North Pole, new South Pole. And what happens during that, coincidentally, and there's even science on this too, whenever there's a collapse of ice like that, you have extreme precipitation. It has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
The water gets evaporated, it goes somewhere, and it turns into a jet stream. And if you remember in Noah's Ark, in the story, they said it rained for 40 days and 40 nights.
Yeah.
Yep.
It did.
So I'm not here to say that the Bible's 100% accurate. I'm just saying I think that there's more to be said with these religious doctrine, and I could even bring up stuff from the Quran and the Torah to kind of all correlate all this together too.
Yes,
so
that's what I mean.
So these are essentially religious scriptures that are dotted around all over the world, reporting the same
thing,
the same events at the same time, essentially.
Yeah.
Yes, and not only that, but also keeping track, knowing when the next disaster is going to happen.
And they did that astronomically. Am I right in thinking with the star signs?
They kept track of really long amounts of time, like 6,000 years at a time. They're able to. I mean, they're doing it right now.
Wow.
Incredible.
So this is reminding me of Ancient Apocalypse, the Graham Hancock documentary on Netflix, which I thought was fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
We loved it, didn't we?
Kaz has just watched it. We watched it last night, and you were blown away by it, weren't you?
We did the whole thing.
Binged it in one day.
Binged it. I was like blown away completely.
And in there they talk about this tablet which has got it carved into the rock where the certain star signs were in certain locations, and they zoomed back in time to when these constellations were in the configuration of this tablet. They could work out when the asteroid hit the Earth, etc., etc. Am I right in thinking that the asteroid hypothesis for that apocalypse essentially. Is that pretty cemented? Is that pretty theorized? Is that cemented theory, or is it just a crazy theory?
No, and the truth is most profound discoveries or moving forward with a certain topic, it usually comes from someone who's completely an outsider. So in that regard, I do totally understand what he's saying about that, because he's right about that too. He is just a journalist, but I mean, just a journalist, right? I mean,
investigator.
We're all just right. We are all investigative journalists ourselves too.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
Right. And that's what we're doing right now, technically.
Yeah.
So I think that
I should claim that on my taxes. Second employment.
Yeah.
Investigative journalism. Maybe there's some tax rebates I can get.
I think so.
Yeah, his hypothesis of the meteorite impact is definitely a possibility. The only issue I have with it seems that the line of the ash that fell down seems to be uniform across the planet. Now, me personally, it would seem to me that it would be more dispersed in that area wherever it hit. There would be more preponderance of that type of ash in that area, and it would kind of disperse outward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not be
I mean, because if it was dispersed evenly, it would seem like something the sun did. That's why I think that maybe it might not be.
Now, you've mentioned this on our WhatsApp exchanges prior to this Zoom call. Now, this is very interesting because I hadn't heard much about this. Now, I'm aware of solar flares. For people that are watching at home, I know we're darting all over the place here. We'll try and get back to the magnetic poles, but I feel it's all related. But it's certainly related to the poles. I'm aware of solar flares. I'm aware of the plasma that can be ejected from these at these astronomical amounts of plasma, and the sheer scale of them are just beyond comprehension. They're huge. And it's our magnetic poles that protect us from that to some degree.
Yeah.
And if the poles are in their process of flipping or moving, they're currently weaker than they have been. Is that right?
Yes, they are. They're currently, and you can go online and look up this data. We have plenty of, even from governmental websites, that the magnetic pole has been weakening for quite some time, but the last few years it seems to be accelerating.
But how fast are we talking, mate? Are we talking a small acceleration, like it's gone downhill a little bit, or has it decided to jump off the cliff and just bottom out?
Current projections put it at 2030 to 2045.
That's when it's going to do something.
It's probably going to completely shut off. Not completely shut off, but maybe weaken to the point to where, I mean, it's going to let in a lot more of the sun's energy, and there'll be a lot more cases of skin cancer. But coincidentally, at the same time, we're coming into a solar minimum too.
Oh, okay.
So we got that going for us.
That's handy. That's handy. Because the last, am I right? Is it the Carrington event? Was that it?
That was 1859. Yeah,
that's it. Man, you're
Carrington
good.
event.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mate. I'm trying to test you, and you're passing with flying colours.
Every single bit of it.
So tell me more about that, mate. Because that was a solar flare, was it not?
Yeah, they think it was a class X100. I think last time I read, we've seen close to that, not quite. And from X100, basically, so what happened was across the planet, all the telegraph wires caught fire. And, we weren't locked into the grid like we are now on such a huge grid system that we have now. And so thankfully, it didn't really do much. We were already in the 1800s when it happened. It wasn't like it knocked us back any. And, if something like that were to happen now, it would be traumatic. And like you said, it's the weakening magnetic field. We get a solar flare. It could hypothetically it would knock us back 100 years because immediately no power.
Yeah.
It would be the equivalent to an EMP.
Yeah.
Essentially, what people know what that is,
Absolutely.
It would be really, it could just be catastrophic. It would have nothing.
Yeah,
Because nothing works at that grade.
Well, we had a power cut here, Andrew, last year, right? And I've been talking about it for months because it was
horrific.
one of the worst experiences I've been through, and I don't say that lightly because I've been through some bullshit.
We had to talk to each other for like 2 days. It was horrible.
We had a 4-day power cut last winter. There was a storm and it knocked over one of the main power lines, and 4 days without power. But some people might be thinking, oh, that's not that bad. But when you live in an electric house where your job is, I can't do my job without electricity, right? I need my phone for my job, and your phone needs a charge. The fridge freezes. the oven. We have an electric oven. The heating. Like there was nothing for 4 days, and it really made me think: if there's some form of catastrophe where the grid goes down, there is going to be fucking chaos, mate. Yeah. Absolute chaos.
Yeah, and yeah, when I go on and I see commercials for this too, and actually I saw one recently the other day, and they said that specifically that our grid is protected against solar flares, and I just was like, no, not if there's a big enough one. I don't think so. There's no stopping that. No, and especially with the weakening magnetic field.
But how did they test
like I said,
it?
coincidentally, we're coming into a grand solar minimum as well. So if you look at lately it's been the tops of the grand solar maximums are 11-year cycles. If you look, they've been kind of dwindling. And so I think it starts at about 2030 is when we go into the grand solar minimum.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's reassuring.
Yeah. So even if, let's say, the everything doesn't happen that we're talking about, at the very least, we've got all these people on the planet, and we're not going to have the natural ability to grow as much food because the sun's not as active.
Yeah.
There's no way around that. It's going to cool the planet. There's no way around that. So there is going to be catastrophe either way we look at this. I'm kind of getting at that too. So even if we're wrong about the pole flip, I think there's bad things coming no matter what.
Yeah, no, indeed. I mean, just the people talking about the war right now. I mean, it's all about to kick off with Russia and Ukraine. I don't follow that too much, but every time I do hear people talking about it, they seem to be quite fearful of it developing into something significant. And then I'm hearing there's going to be a war with China. Although apparently we've been saying that for 50 years or something. So I don't really listen too much. What's your take on it?
Well, I did some digging into the Quran and the Bible and the Torah as far as end times prophecy. And I looked into this. And I thought, I wonder what they say about it. Because, obviously they said a couple of things that are pretty right at this point, in my opinion. And so maybe let's see what else they predicted. And so both the Bible and the Quran quoted the Battle of Gog and Magog. But it gets interesting because the Quran mentions that the Euphrates will expose something that will cause men to go to war over it. That's all it says.
Okay.
Right? So the Bible says the Euphrates River will dry up and then an army from the east will come across and attack. The Battle of Gog and Magog is supposed to be basically Jerusalem versus the guys I was just talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Sorry, the Muslims. Basically, like the country of Iran, or, those countries over there, the Middle Eastern sort of, I don't want to call them terrorists, but, that area,
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So that's basically, but from what I also understand, Gog and Magog is supposed to be a battle of giants. So
giants again.
I mean, we've never really seen a giant, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. And I just want to stick to like the science and the facts on this, and not just get into some crazy conspiracy. But
I kind of want to go. Can we just look at the entrance of that rabbit hole for a moment? Because Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse, he talked about how a lot of these religions were referring to a giant from a distant land that would come and offer gifts and knowledge. And there was several of these repetitions of a giant. These giants that once lived.
Yep.
And I can't help but think they talk about an ark. They talk about these tablets. I mean, their description of things that we know as a tablet and we know as an ark, a ship. The descriptions are fantastic. So the descriptions of the giants. I mean, what the fuck is going on there? That can't be mythological, surely.
No, well, and the funny thing is that the Euphrates River is drying up. So the Bible got it right, and they don't know why it's drying up.
Have they given a time frame on the Bible? Does it give a time frame? Does it say 2020?
No, they just say nobody will know the time and place, the return of Jesus, and basically when the actual final cataclysm actually comes, which I think the crescendo is going to be about 2046 from what I've gathered.
Okay.
Is the actual apocalypse isn't going to be until about 2046 when I think the sun is going to, I think it's going to micronova.
What's a micronova?
So a micronova is, for a long time, scientists didn't think they even existed. It's basically, over time, dust kind of collects on the outside of the sun. And I guess what happens is over time, that collection...
Bit of skin from my foot.
Eventually, it gets too much for the sun darkens, and then it just, kaboom, blows up, and it's like an X-1000 solar flare, basically, the planet gets.
Right. Okay. So obviously, a supernova is when the the sun expands to such a point, and then it will either contract or just explode or whatnot, and go down into a neutron star. So a micronova is a mini version of that. Does it just expand a bit and then come back down, or is it just an injection of mass?
It's just an injection of mass, as far as I know.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and a lot, and they have a lot of evidence of this happening. On the moon, they found microbeads of glass.
Okay.
And some of the glass can be explained from meteorite strikes because the heat it takes to create this type of glass. But they found some glass, it's this reddish glass, that contained elements such as like aluminum 26. Now, the inherent temperature you'd need to create aluminum 26, we wouldn't have a moon left if that was the case, because the meteorite would be so large and so huge. The explosion would be so powerful and so hot to create that. The only logical explanation would be that the sun basically micronovaed and fried the surface of the surface of the moon, excuse me.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. What? And then dumped that aluminum 26 down on Earth.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or well, in Earth, it kind of does something similar. It actually, that same energy creates carbon-14, actually, which is coincidentally why they can't date things that well, because carbon-14 is created when we have, say, solar flare or something.
Interesting. Now, forgive me, Andrew. My Zoom is telling me I need to upgrade because I've only got 10 minutes left. However, I have already upgraded, so I think I might.
Oh, okay. How do you upgrade?
I might. No, I've already done it, but I didn't log out of my Zoom and log back in. So I'll close this down. I'll send you back the link, and we'll just kick back up when we started. 2 seconds, mate. Hey, sorry about that.
All right, we're back.
We're back. We're back. So forgive me. We were talking about the micronova. What does the T-shirt say? It's for me.
Oh, it says, okay, so a lot of times, this is the joke behind this shirt. So a lot of times people come in wanting something small tattooed on their wrist, let's say, and they want it upside down facing them. This is a diagram of why you don't do that.
That's brilliant.
Idiots.
Yeah. It's great because nobody gets it unless you're in the business.
Of course. Yeah. What's the most ridiculous tattoo you've come across?
Most times nowadays it's hard to. I just forget them.
No. There's just so many of them.
Yeah, and 9 times out of 10, I'm really good at talking them out of it. If it's really that bad, I could just say, "Hey,
it's not worth it. It's not worth it."
Have you ever had to do one where they were completely adamant?
Oh yeah, I just do it, make the money, because they'll just go somewhere else nowadays. There's too many tattoo shops.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, mate, going back to the micronova, I've got a favourite fact that I'd like to share. You're going to know this anyway, but I'll share it with Kaz. It was my favourite astronomy fact of all time. This is when someone says, "Give me a fact about space," I give them this fact. Right? The elements: gold, silver, iron, copper, and magnesium.
Yeah.
Well, every element is made in the sun, but those 5 in particular that are found commonly on Earth. You might have gold on a ring, or you might have copper piping in your house for the radiator or whatnot. Those are all elements made inside of the sun.
Yeah.
And when the sun explodes, it dumps those metals through meteorites down onto the Earth. But the most fascinating one is iron.
Right, okay.
So iron is made in the core of the sun, and it's also found in your blood. So without iron, we wouldn't be alive, and more specifically, without the sun, we wouldn't be alive, because it's literally the metal of iron that can only be produced from stars, and eventually we go back into that star, and the cycle continues.
So we really are made of stars.
We're made of stars.
Do you know, that's a beautiful thought.
It's better than religion, in my opinion.
That's such a beautiful...
That's-
I love
That's beautiful.
that.
I love it.
Yeah.
I find more comfort in that than I do with a god. Does that make sense?
Completely.
If I know I'm going to go
yeah.
back into a star, I think that's incredible.
That's the ultimate life cycle.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
I wanted to be buried as a tree when I die. I was thinking of one of those pods where you
They're
fruit tree.
great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which way?
I want to feed people when I'm gone.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that, mate. What tree would you have?
Maybe a mango or a pear tree.
Nice, nice. So people literally would be eating your fruit.
Yes.
Ooh.
It's quite sexual. I like it.
You would. Literally eating your peach.
Well, I mean, it's not a banana tree.
I like the idea. Oh, very good. Very good. I like
It's
the.
kind of cold for that out here anyway. So.
It's been snowing here, mate. I know. I saw on your TikTok, I think it was, that it's snowing there as well. How deep is it?
Yeah, we just got. Well, today it's about 40 degrees. Yeah, there's still a lot of snow. There's a good 4 or 5 feet on the ground out here still.
Oh, you guys get proper snow. Yeah.
Ours is about 2 inches.
Yeah, if that. If that.
Yeah.
It was more
Little bit of
sludge this
ice
morning.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
Do you do ice baths out of interest?
Do you do what? I'm sorry.
Ice baths.
I take a cold shower at night.
Oh, okay.
That's my version of it, but I could easily just jump out in the snow or something.
That's why I asked. Yeah, you look like you like the outside. Would that be a correct assessment?
Yes. I do spend a lot of time outside. I've always had this affinity for like remembering plant names and stuff, and so when I was in college, I did learn a lot of the Latin names and like functions and like the medicinal plants, and I just naturally I kind of have this thing every time I go for a hike or a bike ride or something. I find an edible plant.
I love that.
Or medicinal.
Are you a Paul Stamets fan?
A what fan?
A Paul Stamets, the microbiologist of fungi. Paul Stamets. Do you know him?
Oh yeah, yes, I know you're talking about. He did a podcast with Joe Rogan.
That's
as well.
right. Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Paul Stamets.
Stamets. Forgive me. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I am a mushroom nerd as well. Too. not the kind where, not where I'm lost for 8 hours. Not that kind.
Sure.
Me and my wife actually go out a lot during the spring and in the fall. Was mainly when the seasons are out here for our mushrooms, and we find quite a bit. And I've kind of learned how to farm them a little bit. So.
Wow.
Oh, I love that. Well, I think I'd like to have another separate conversation with you about psychedelics. I think we'd get on well there as well. So, going back to the solar flares, my man. So the sun does a micronova, scorches the surface of the Earth. Essentially, would that be classified as a reset as well? Would it literally just fry everything?
Yeah, it would fry everything. Well, anything facing the sun, essentially.
Oh, I see.
I think.
Right, so we got a 50-50 chance.
You might be okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, that would make sense.
But the thing with solar flares, it's not so much like a gunshot as it is a continuous stream after it happens. So, like, what happens with solar flares, too, the initial burst is like 8 minutes it takes to get to us.
Yep.
But then for the next 17 to 18 hours, you're going to have that high influx of high-energy proton storm from that.
I see. And, of course, it's not just the frying. The heating up will melt the polar caps, which will cause a massive flood.
I'd imagine it would definitely be pretty quick. I don't think that this slow gradual change that they're talking about, because if these poles realign and the planet shifts, I mean, immediately it's cold in these new places and warmer where the poles are at. So immediately you're going to have a huge change in the jet streams and everything. So, I mean, like I said, all hypothetical we're talking about. I would imagine, like it said in Noah's Ark, that it probably is going to rain across the planet, rain and snow for 40 days and 40 nights.
But do you not think they're giving us the information, telling us it's going to be a slow process to keep us calm?
Yeah. But I think they're definitely lying to us about the actual driver of climate change. Don't get me wrong, I don't think that human species are the greatest. I mean, we're litterers, we mine everywhere, we destroy the planet, and I'm not a fan of any of that. But we're not as bad as they say we are, and that's kind of where I'm getting at. I think that the carbon dioxide myth, I think they're using that because when I started thinking about it, I think that they found a way that's unavoidable for every human on the planet. There's no way any activity that you do requires some sort of carbon dioxide to be produced. It doesn't matter what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wearing a t-shirt, wearing any kind of electronics, it requires the mining, the manufacturing process. So just about everything you do, even like using the bathroom, produces carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
So there's no way out of it. And if they can tax everybody on that, it's a means for them to extract all the last resources from all of us.
Also a distraction.
Yeah.
It's a wealth extraction, and I think that's all it really is. And I think it took a couple generations of brainwashing and really pushing it out in the school, and I hate to say it, but every one of their models that they said in the 90s, oh, we're not going to have snow by 2010. None of them ever were even close. Every one of their models were completely wrong. They've never been able to predict anything. And when you start thinking about a change in the polar vortex, where the poles go, and a change in the entire weather system, that begins to make a lot more sense. In my opinion.
Yeah,
what happened, and they're also putting an urgency on it for 2030. AOC said we only got like 12 years left, and she said that in 2008. A lot of these guys are really trying to get their plans for 2030.
Interesting.
So when you think about the poles shutting off by 2030 and everything in combination, it starts to make more sense. You go, that makes a lot more sense. They're herding us into these cities. I'm not 100% sure why, but I think it's the depopulation, and I think it's to take the weakest of us, the most docile, and basically push us into caves while we ride this thing out, and maybe get us down to like 500 million across the planet. I don't know. It's really, I know, because I'm trying to think, what would their motives be other than just extracting resources? There's also this AI revolution coming in where they don't necessarily need us anymore either. And that's the real scary part to me.
That's the scary bit.
When ChatGPT launched a couple of months ago, it blew my fucking mind, mate. I couldn't believe how, and that's what they're showing us. That's the version that they're happy to show us. Do you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck are they building in the background? I mean, what has Elon Musk got? I mean, he's making a brain chip. He's literally making a brain chip. It's remarkable. You've seen the little monkey playing with its mind. It's like, what the fuck is going on? We're RoboCop is going to be real, and it's soon. It's already
real. We just don't know it's there yet.
He just launched his invention event where the robots are building each other.
Yeah,
I showed you that.
Yeah, incredible.
Have you seen that one yet, Andrew?
I haven't seen that, but that's really scary.
Oh, mate, let me show you that.
It's petrifying.
That's scary.
Let me show you that. These bots are now so advanced.
But I think that they're kind of herding us into a sort of a funnel, like kind of a funnel where it's going to be a population reduction no matter what. When you start confining people into close spaces like that, time and time again, study shows that people are going to get more sick. And then they're talking about not feeding us meat, so we're not going to be as healthy with being in these cities.
Which makes no sense.
So it's the combination of that. And I made a video, too, on TikTok, and I compared it to the ghettos of World War II.
Wow.
And it seems very similar, in my opinion. It seems like the next step in this social credit score thing, too.
Are you familiar with how cereal was invented?
No, I'm not.
Cornflakes. There was Mr. Kellogg's. I forget his first name. He was a devout Christian. And I might mess a couple of the specific details up, but the general story is correct. Again, you can research this. He was a devout Christian or Catholic and an extremist, and he was annoyed and angered that adolescents were masturbating, having sex and drinking, essentially. So he created a breakfast that was void of all nutrients to hormonally sabotage adolescents to make their libido decrease, to stop this from happening. So when you then look at Kellogg's cornflakes or cereals in general, they've had all their nutrition taken out of it. I did 12 years. I'm a nutritional coach by trade, so I'm very familiar with that world. And if you look at a cereal, everything's removed. The fiber's removed, the nutrients are removed, the salts are removed. They try and claim to put vitamins back in afterwards, but they're not the same. They're not absorbed at the same rate or whatnot. So what our children are literally eating in their formative growth years is pure sugar. I mean, it's quite literally pure sugar. Now, I'm not one of those sugar demonizing, sugar's going to give you cancer, one of those guys. But I do know that if you were to eat nothing but sugar, you won't last very long. You need vitamins, minerals, fiber, micronutrients. And Mr. Kellogg's was a crazy, crazy man who tried to do some crazy things, and he was successful.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's tied to the eugenics movement back then, because it seems like it'd be roughly the same time period too. I wonder if they were in the same groups of people. And,
eugenics? What was that? What was that?
I wonder if that guy somehow knew people tied to the eugenics program, or he, if he spent any time with them, or if he.
I haven't heard of the eugenics program. What's that?
So early in American history, well, not really early, I guess about the 20s and 30s, right before World War II, the common science was extremely racist. Okay, we'll just say it like that. The doctors at the time, some of these were German doctors too, were saying that the blacks were an inferior race based on their skull shape and all this nonsense. And believe it or not, that's where the word retard came from, believe it or not. And that was actually considered the politically correct word of the day too. And so they would have terms like imbecile, moron, retard, and that's where all these words came from.
Horrific.
Basically just to refer to these other races. That's all it was. And so the eugenics program ended up becoming this perverted, there was this lady involved in it, Margaret Sanger. It was a known eugenicist and racist, and she's the person that started our healthcare facility, Planned Parenthood, which is where they do abortions.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they're placed in low financial neighborhoods intentionally. There's plenty of evidence of that. And she's on camera said that she would like to eliminate the black race and just insanity.
My Christ. Andrew, mate, forgive me. I need to use the little boys' room. Do you mind if we put a quick pause on this? I will be.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm gonna go.
Bring what you got. We're going all the way to the top. We will hear the sound of 1 million people screaming our names when we're backstage. We'll play loud, surfing the